Strike King Pro Mark Menendez here with you. And when you go to the bait store, what is the biggest section in the whole deal? Soft plastics. And there's so many shapes, so many sizes, so many tails, so many arms, so many legs. What's one that's going to work for you, particularly in the post-spawn? And post-spawn is a great time to soft plastic fish. Fish are in a kind of a negative mood. They need to feed. They've just gone through the spawning ritual that uses the most amount of energy in a year's time. So they're kind of tired and lethargic. I'm going to show you 4 different ways and/or 4 different baits that I use in different ways in the post-spawn to trigger these fish to bite. My absolute favorite, doggone, I would give a nickel for every one of these I've used in my fishing career, is a Strike King Rage Craw. Very simple, Texas rig. I've got it pegged with a weight stop, tour grade tungsten, 5/0 Gamakatsu hook, and just a Rage Craw. And I go down the bank pitching it. No, I'm going down the bank looking for specific targets. These fish come off the bed, they get next to something. They want to get next to something. They're lethargic, they're tired, and for about a week after they've spawned, they don't move a lot. And this darn thing really, really catches them well. It's compact, it's easy, it's a great meal. And I think a crayfish is the #1 specialty food that a bass will eat. And it fills them up and it gets that energy level back up. So I take a Strike King Rage Craw, and the key to the whole thing in the post-spawn is the size weight that I'm going to use. I'm going to use a lighter than average weight. My normal Rage Craw weight is a 5/16 tour grade tungsten. That's the one I like. It's easy for me to pitch, it's easy to skip. I can fish it deep, I can fish it shallow, but I back up a little bit. I drop down to a 1/4 ounce size to make this bait fall even slower. I want this fish to see that bait coming down into its strike zone slowly and get a good long view of it. And if it hangs above his head a little bit longer, those post-spawn fish are a little more apt to feed upward than going down on a bait and feeding it down on the bottom. So I want it to fall in the water column a little slower. I may use an 1/8 ounce. I mean, you pitch a Rage Craw on an 1/8 ounce, it takes it a long time to hit the bottom in 2.5 to 3 feet of water. It's just doing its little deal. All of a sudden that old fish sees it, goes and gets it. Great size, compact, use it all over the country. Crayfish, the #1 getter for bass anytime. I hate to give this one up. It's one of my absolute favorite Strike King baits of all time. Post-spawn after about a week. Now I can start reeling a few things, but sometimes in cleaner water, you want a soft plastic bait. And this is my all-time favorite. I love the Funky Monkey. I sing that old song all the time when I'm fishing it. This is a Strike King Space Monkey. Kind of looks like a Rage Craw. It's got a little wider body to it. It's a little thicker here. So this planing surface on the back helps keep this bait up. I fish this in the water column high. I'm retrieving it up high. And all of these digits and these arms and that flat body keeps that bait up. I want to keep it either in the zone where I can see it or just below the zone where I can't quite see it, but I want it up. That bass again feeding up around down the side of a dock, under a willow tree. A lay down tree is a great thing to fish this thing over. But this imitates a bluegill to me. Texas rig it again. I use big line. I use 17 to 20 pound fluorocarbon line and a big hook. I like this 5/0 hook with my plastics. One of the hooks that I use in soft plastics, making a soft plastic fishing better, is a straight shank round bend hook. Regardless of how I set that hook, from the side, straight up, back this way, that hook point is in a penetrating upward, and it makes your soft plastic fishing so much better. Texas rig the unit, come down, come in about a 1/4 inch, slide it to the eye of the hook, turn the hook back towards the body of the bait, come right back through the middle of the bait. The bait is weedless and ready to go. Love to swim the Space Monkey to get these fish to bite. The next presentation that I like is the bug, the old Rage bug, but I am punching. Fish really like to suspend high in the water column on the post-spawn, so when I've got mats, lily pads, I'm using a very heavy tour grade tungsten, a minimum of a 3/4 up to a 1 1/4, and I'm punching that through. The great thing about the bug, it fits in all the little holes of the vegetation because it's thin. So I don't get hung up. I'm not fighting it going down through. I'm not fighting it coming back up in my presentations. So I really like the bug for that. minimal amount of action to it. It's got the little claws, it's got this, but we're striking at the mass. When it goes through, I either do one of two things. I let it fall to the bottom fast. We know that fish is kind of suspended up. Let it fall down and then bring it up to the bottom side of the mat, just like this, and bump that bait on the bottom of that mat. And it pulls those fish from distance when I'm bumping the bottom of that mat. It gives them something to look for. But punching is a great way to go in the post spawn. Some lakes that on the first movement on the way out of the spawning cove, the fish are going to go straight to the primary point in the cove. Any long point that comes out there. They still want a subtle type movement, and a Carolina rig is a great way to go. It is a way that you have to be very patient and drag and find offshore cover on those points. You're looking for hard spots on the points. Got a Strike King tungsten Carolina rig weight, a bead, a noisemaker, a swivel, and a distance of line that is generally about 3 feet between my weight and my hook. And the new little scound bug is perfect for this. This little bait is small. You know, when you've had lunch and you're sitting on the couch watching a football game, do you want another big cheeseburger for lunch, or are you gonna reach over and grab one of those little Snicker bar candy bars? I'm gonna grab that little Snickers bar, and that's what this is. This is that little bite of candy that when it's drugged slowly behind, the rage flange on the end of the little pinchers there make bug move like this, where the rage crawl cups the water this way. The scound bug moves in an up and down fashion, and it's very subtle. Again, the lethargicness of the fish is what I'm after. I'm trying to appeal to that. So very small movements most of the time are what I'm looking for. Small in diameter, flat, has a chance to lift up off the bottom, and this little deal on a Carolina rig can be dynamite. And because the bait is relatively small, that hook point is right there where it can be in a hooking position. The only thing with a Carolina rig is when you set that hook, you really can't set it forward high like we normally do with a flipping stick. Reel it down and set that hook to the side so you pull that hook point right into that fish and get that fish into the boat. Post-spawn fishing, it's about slowing down a lot of times. It's about making that bait fall slowly so that lethargic fish can be attracted to that bait. Soft plastics, my #1 way to go in the post-spawn.